Hi, everybody. My name is Casey. Welcome to those of you who are new, and welcome back to those who have been here before. So, we recently spoke about the composer Jerome Kern and mentioned his landmark musical Showboat. But let's be real, there is so much more to dive into with that musical. Ultimately, Showboat is credited with laying the groundwork for a revolution in how musical theater was structured and how it started to shift the format that allowed to the later creation of the Disney movie musicals we know and love today. Let's dive in. So let's give a little historical context to what led up to Showboat. And so in the 1920s, Broadway was dominated by these light-hearted musical comedies and revues, but Showboat was a departure from this trend, and it introduced some more serious themes and more complicated characters to the musical stage. And so Showboat was the result of a successful collaboration between Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein II, as well as producer Florence Ziegfeld. Their combined talents led to the creation of a musical that would later revolutionize Broadway. Especially when we're talking about a musical so pivotal to the complete revolution of what musical theater and theater became, it's important. Let's talk a little bit about who these people were that really kicked all this off, right? So we talked more in depth about Jerome Kern previously, but he was a composer who at the time was known for his innovative work at the Princess Theater and really starting to integrate the music into the narrative of shows. At the time Showboat was created, he had also completed a few successful collaborations with Florence Ziegfeld. Now, Florence Ziegfeld was a producer known for his elaborate shows, as well as the creation of the Ziegfeld Follies. Think of them as kind of being like the Rockettes, but with insanely elaborate costumes, and then some added entertainment and comedy thrown in. They were extremely popular at the time and ran from 1907 through about 1931. Then we get to Oscar Hammerstein II. He was a lyricist, most commonly known for his later work with Richard Rodgers, but prior to Showboat, he had actually written several other shows that were incredibly popular at the time as well. So what was Showboat? What even is this musical? What is this plot, right? So, Showboat follows the lives of performers and workers on the Cotton Blossom, which was a showboat that traveled along the Mississippi River. The story spans several decades and revolves around the lives of Magnolia Hawks, the daughter of the showboat's captain, and Julie Laverne, a biracial performer. Magnolia falls in love with Gaylord Ravenel, a charming gambler, and the two marry and start a family. However, their happiness is threatened by financial struggles and personal conflicts. As the years pass, the showboat faces various challenges, including competition from land-based entertainment and societal changes. Throughout it all, the characters navigate themes of love, loss, and redemption, culminating in a really poignant and memorable conclusion. Musical highlights include songs like Old Man River, Can't Help Lovin' Dat Man, and Make Believe. These songs are not only beloved for their melodies, but also for their amazing emotional depth and thematic resonance. Let's look at the impact Showboat had on society at the time. What was the relevance then? So, Showboat was one of the first musicals to ever feature African American characters in significant roles. While the portrayal of race was incredibly controversial at the time, the show really challenged racial stereotypes and paved the way for greater diversity on Broadway. Through its depiction of issues such as interracial marriage and segregation, Showboat provided a commentary on the social and political climate of the time. The show's portrayal of complex characters and relationships added a ton of depth and nuance to the musical theater landscape. Let's go ahead and break down the specifics of the social commentary, right? So first, there's a lot of commentary on interracial relationships. One of the most central plot lines in Showboat revolves around the character Julie Laverne, who is revealed to be mixed race and married to a white man, Steve Baker. Their interracial marriage, which was illegal in many parts of the United States at the time, really brings to light the harsh realities of racial prejudice and the legal ramifications of such relationships at the time the show was developed and initially performed. Then there is the character of Joe, an African-American dock worker who is given depth and dignity, which is completely unusual for Black characters in theater at the time. His song, Old Man River, is a poignant reflection on the struggles and resilience of African-American workers at the time. The song's lyrics highlight the enduring hardship and systematic oppression faced by Black people, making it a powerful commentary on race at the time. Then we get to life as an African-American individual at the time. So Showboat portrays African-American lives with a level of complexity and humanity that was almost unheard of at the time. The characters are not just background figures, but integral to the narrative, with their own stories, their own struggles. This includes moments of community, such as the show-specific spiritual Can't Help Lovin' Dat Man, which transcends racial boundaries in the show. It also discusses a lot of racial tension and prejudice. It in no way shies away from showing the racial tensions and prejudice that the character of Julie faces in her storyline, and the reactions the other characters have to her mixed background really highlight the societal racism that permeates the setting of the story. The harsh reality of racial discrimination is a central theme that drives much of the plot's conflict. It also discusses challenges to stereotypes. While Showboat does contain some elements that might be seen as stereotypical today, it also challenges many of the prevailing stereotypes of the era. By giving African American characters significant roles and portraying them with depth and complexity, the musical helped to challenge the simplistic and often derogatory portrayals common in the early 19th century. So at its core, Showboat is a reflection of its time. It both exposes and critiques racial prejudices in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The show opened the door for future productions to tackle more serious social issues and laid the groundwork for more progressive representations in musical theater. No show is free of controversy, but especially not a show that's going to tackle major societal issues, right? And so Showboat, which premiered in 1927, again, we're talking about 1927, is widely regarded as a landmark in American musical theater, but has also been subject to a lot of controversy, particularly regarding its depiction of race and racial issues. Here are some of the main points of the controversy, right? Showboat includes African American characters who are portrayed with more depth and complexity than was typical for the time. But on the flip side, it also contains elements that are really problematic, even for the time, including use of racial slurs such as the N-word. The character Julie Laverne, who is mixed race, also faces severe consequences when her racial background is revealed. This plot point really highlights the harsh realities of racism, but also uses language and depictions that are not necessarily the greatest. While the characters like Joe and Queenie are given significant roles and portrayed really sympathetically, a lot of critics argue that the musical still perpetuates many stereotypes. For example, Joe's song Old Man River portrays him as a long-suffering stoic figure, which some see as reinforcing a stereotype of the noble, enduring Black man. And then there's the character of the comic peddler, who is typically played with exaggerated ethnic traits that can also be seen as perpetuating negative stereotypes of ethnic minorities. Showboat is also accused of romanticizing the antebellum South. Showboat is set in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and then features nostalgic elements of the antebellum South and life along the Mississippi River at that time. Critics argue that this setting, combined with the overly romanticized portrayal of life on a showboat, can really gloss over the harsh realities of slavery and segregation. There is also concerns that the music is highly appropriative. Showboat incorporates African American musical traditions such as spirituals and folk music into its score. Songs like Old Man River draw heavily on these traditions, and while these songs add depth and authenticity to the portrayal of African American characters, the appropriation of these styles by a predominantly white creative team has been a major point of contention. Not to mention that Jerome Kern, the composer of this musical, did get his start by writing a minstrel show, immediately followed by an adaptation of Uncle Tom's Cabin. That does not bode well for the creative team of this show. Now, the show does also provide commentary of major societal racial issues at the time, like interracial marriage. One of the central plot points is the revelation that Julie Laverne, a mixed-race character who passes as white, is married to a white man. And when it's revealed that she's mixed race, this interracial marriage, which was illegal in many parts of the United States at the time, really again highlights the prejudices and legal barriers faced by mixed-race couples. While this plot element was incredibly progressive for its time, it also underscores social taboos and legal issues surrounding race. Different productions of Showboat have addressed controversies in different ways. Some have chosen to soften or remove the offensive language and stereotypes, while others have aimed to present the material in a way that sparks discussion about the history of race in the United States. The show's portrayals and language have been subject to ongoing debate amongst theater practitioners, historians, and audiences, over time reflecting evolving attitudes towards race and representation over time. Ultimately, Showboat was extremely progressive at the time and did serve to highlight racial issues in the context of society at the time. It was completely groundbreaking in its portrayals, but despite the positive intent and influence, the show is equally problematic. Despite the mixed impact and view of Showboat, it is still an essential piece of history that can still serve today to give modern audiences a better understanding of the past, and serves as a talking point to bring up many ongoing and systematic racial concerns, and can spark really essential conversations among modern audiences. I remember the first time I watched the 1951 film version, I had no idea what I was about to see. My teenage self was just completely enraptured in the plot, but I remember being so horrified by the ending, where Julie, the mixed race character, just gives up her job, gives up her dreams, gives up her life, just to let the white Magnolia take over for her in her spot. And then as everything wrapped up, everyone seemed to get a happy ending, except for Julie. She lost everything and was completely SOL, but it was clear the film still considered this a happy ending because she had sacrificed to help Magnolia? And with some research, it came to light the ending of the 1951 movie was changed a little bit from the original play to make it really appeal to 1950s audiences. Yet, the changes highlight how even each revival of this show can really give new insights into how our society views and addresses racial issues. Although Showboat continues to maintain relevance today for its ability to spark conversation about ongoing systematic racial issues and to shed light on attitudes of the past, that's not the only reason Showboat is historically important. Showboat also introduced several key innovations to the musical theater genre, including its use of music to advance the plot and develop characters. The show's blend of serious themes with popular entertainment set a completely new standard for Broadway musicals. Although the songs in the show are still treated as songs rather than a continuation of the narrative, lyrically and thematically, they're used to advance the plot, enhance the characters, and really create a deeper understanding of what's happening. For example, the song Can't Help Lovin' That Man is a song Julie sings that helped the other people in the showboat realize she is mixed race before the police try to arrest her. Then the song Old Man River is sung by the dock worker because it's a song he would be singing while working. In some ways, Showboat consistently integrated music in a way never seen before or again. Rather than using suspended disbelief to hear the music as part of the story or dialogue, the music in the show was recognized by the characters as music. The characters themselves were like, this is music, while simultaneously moving forward the plot with what was happening in the song. This really served as a turning point to further integrate music into storytelling. But I feel like if this was done again, where the entire show was done that way, it would still feel innovative and fresh, even though it's swinging in the opposite direction of what we're doing now. Yeah, sure, there's a show here and there that has a little short song that might be part of a show within the musical, or something like that, or like one or two songs like that, but not like the bulk of a show, if that makes sense. It's a very different vibe. I feel like if everything was truly recognized by the characters as music, that would be fascinating to see even now. Again, as long as it continued to progress the story. Anyways, the success of Showboat ultimately paved the way for other musicals to tackle more serious subjects and explore more complicated characters. The show's themes of love, family, and social justice continue to be relevant to audiences today. Prior to Showboat, again, most musicals were made for light entertainment. Like, they weren't taken super seriously. It was maybe might have been a little flashy with Ziegfeld, but the rest of it was very, very vaudeville, very light comedy, very kind of strung together. But Showboat was one of the first popular musicals ever to cover really, truly serious topics and issues and make them the focal point of the show. It also gave characters significantly more depth and nuance than in previous shows before it. And I mean, I would argue that it gave characters more depth than a lot of shows in the following decade or so. The success of Showboat paved the way for other musicals to tackle serious subjects and explore complex characters, exploring themes of love, family, and social justice that resonates with audience today and can really spark new conversations and insights even now. Theater historians and scholars have praised Showboat for its groundbreaking approach to musical theater. Many credit the show with ushering in a brand new era of artistic innovation on Broadway. Actors and performers who've been involved in productions have spoken about the show's enduring impact on their careers. Many cite the opportunity to explore complex characters and themes as a highlight of their experience. Ultimately, Showboat remains a landmark musical that continues to influence Broadway and popular culture. Its exploration of serious themes and complex characters has really helped to shape the modern musical theater landscape. If you haven't encountered any material from Showboat in the past, I would definitely recommend checking it out, at least listening to the soundtrack, maybe reading the original novel, or watching a production of the show. By engaging with the show's themes and legacy, you can really get a deeper understanding of its impact on Broadway and American culture. Plus, what a great opportunity to really spark some of those conversations that are so needed in our modern day world about race in America. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this and continue to see this series on kind of the history of what led up to the creation of the Disney movie musical, hit subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Anyways, thank you again and have a great rest of your day.